And welcome. I'm Rich, and this is Misfits, Wanderers, and the Rest of Us. Glad to have you along. This is for those of us who felt like we didn't exactly fit in with the world we were brought into, that feel like they have had to disconnect from their authentic selves in order to survive and assimilate, who are desperate for something different. We focus on our basic needs: food, clothing, shelter, but we often don't acknowledge our other needs. And they are clearly needs: to be seen, to be heard, to connect, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we do what we know how in order to dull the pain. The mission here is to provide a space where people can have these needs met in a safe environment, surrounded by others finding their way who are willing to support and be supported along this collective journey. When we connect to our authentic selves, we can heal. We can live and lead from a place of love rather than from pain or from fear. The ripple effects from more and more people freeing themselves from the chains of trauma and fear and living in love through their authenticity will change literally anything you can think of. One step at a time, of course, right? So let's explore, shall we? Hey, this is Rich, and thank you for joining us today on Misfits, Wanderers, and the Rest of Us. On this episode, I am excited to share with you a conversation I had with my friend Megan Holt. She is a holistic coach and is very well versed in all kinds of things. We talked exactly about all kinds of things. We went from basil to gut health, to listening to our bodies, to garlic, to what insects we've tried eating. It goes all over the place, but the best conversations do. And I invite you to come and hang out with us, and if so inspired, share what comes through for you. Let me introduce to you Megan Holt. So what I want to ask you, and it's because I just did a whole bunch of cooking and that stuff is already in my mind. I got to see you with a whole hell of a lot of basil the other day.
Yeah. Oh, and man.
All I could think of was, I do a number with a pesto sauce and I could make the killer spaghetti. And then I started wanting pasta, and I remembered I can't eat pasta, but it's still yummy.
It is. It's still yummy. And I have maybe some alternatives for you if you cannot have gluten or I don't know, are you doing the no carb thing or the keto thing?
I don't really do a particular diet. For me, it's I learned that about 7 or 8 years ago, I suddenly ate a sandwich and my intestines started doing really weird things. And I didn't put the things together. I just kind of had a major life shift and things like that at the time. Yeah. I didn't, but I found that my intestines didn't feel great. Like it felt like there was they turned into a sieve, and it just felt like things were just expanding. And at the time, my weight was really out of control. So I went to the doctor. They sent me to a GI specialist. They tested me for everything under the sun, and they were able to eliminate cancer. They could eliminate a lot of the major stuff. Hey, Mary, good to see you. But
hi, Mary.
Other than that, they couldn't give me any answers. They tested me for gluten, dairy, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're like, if you got IBS or something, go chug some Miralax and we'll see you in 6 months.
And just like make sure that you accept this as normal. I'm so glad that you brought this subject up. I'm so glad. So for the original comment, right, to my basil, yes, we will get to that because it's one of my favorite herbs in the entire herbdom of kingdoms. But yes, so I find this so often that doctors, when they don't have a standardized quantification, they're just like, oh, well, it could be this, it could be that. And, it really is just like those educated type guesses. But the way that they come off about it is you just have to accept it. That is not okay, people. And when that happens, a few really neat things, like for one, with gluten or heavy starchy type foods, it could be that your body doesn't process them in the same energetic way. And so what that does is it disrupts your energy field, which then sends symptoms to your body. And this is something that I am so passionate about and I'm working on right now, in that our intestine, so our small intestine is like a medium discerner. So it's what separates fluids. It's what separates nutrients. It's what separates the nutrients from the waste. And so in going through that big life shift, I'm sure that there was a lots of discernment, a lots of like cloud whirling, kind of awareness that was coming. So there's the energetic part. And then you put in these like heavy, almost at that point, kind of insoluble type foods, which are your simple sugars and your real starchy foods. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm working on something down here. I'm going to need you to just like hold off for a minute kind of thing. And so the doctors are like, oh, well, just coat everything inside and you'll be okay. And so what that really gives us the opportunity to do is, yes, look at our diet. The food diet means the foods that we eat, not the plan that we follow. It's the foods that we eat. And it can even go into the diet of mental digestion and psychological digestion, which is something that I'm really fond of. However, when that happens, you have to check in with your body and be like, okay, what are you really trying to tell me? Like really sit with that energy, just like you did. So once you kind of eliminated what made you feel kind of icky with the food, were you able to get a clearer like discernment or a clearer awareness about kind of where your path was going after that kind of shift?
I did, but it took me some work. I was like, look, I did the Miralax for a while, and then they had me do that Satan in a bottle. Was it magnesium something?
Yeah, magnesium citrate. Oh, citrate. And that's where I was going is like once everything gets through your small intestine, like once it's separated out what it wants for your body, and what like your body is like, okay, I can handle this stuff, but I need you to get rid of all this stuff. Then it sends it to the lower intestine, which is your bowels, your colon. And that's where magic happens in a way. It's also where we tend to get that super discomfort, icky type feeling when you're bloated or you're nauseous or you have stomach issues. You just don't feel good. And that being said, the lower intestine is responsible for letting go, shedding an old, eliminating waste, and really energetically letting go of what no longer serves you. And so like when we do what we know to do and, listen to our doctors, which I applaud every medical professional. I really do. I find them most all that I've come in contact with are true, like passionate people about their craft. We follow everything that our doctor says and in turn coat everything on the inside the same way we probably placated our outside world, either food or drugs or sex or money or drama or victimization, like whatever it was that we placated our outsides with. Once we get through that part, then have those shifts, then we get these physical symptoms called a healing crisis. And it really is our energetic and our spiritual body healing. And all of the stuff that we've numbed from the outside is now going to, in a way, not in the same extent, most of the time, is going to show up in our inner body. And our inner ecology is going to start talking to us. And that can be really frustrating sometimes as well as scary. I know for me, whenever I'm a recovered drug addict. And, I did that for a long time. That was my coping skill. And so when I actually started hearing my body talk to me, I had to discern between, wait, am I actually do I need to be in a mental institution because that's what they've told me? Or is this really what healing's like? So that bridge, if you will, is a very important one to build. And so how are your symptoms now?
You really hit on something. It tends to relate to what else is going on in life. If I'm stressed because there's some uncertainty down the road, or I got some big thing and I can't quite figure out what the landing's going to look like, which is most of life. Even when we think we know, we're just bullshitting ourselves.
Yeah.
But when that stuff some of these things do start to act up. And then occasionally I do end up tripping over some wheat by accident. Either something in a restaurant doesn't come through the way you think you did. I actually had an issue like that the other day. I ordered some pizza, and they actually have a really good gluten-free crust, which is hard to find one, but this place has one. And it dawned on me, this pizza is too good.
It's so funny, but I agree.
And they've gotten better with the replacements, but I'm a foodie at heart, and I can pick up it's not the same. There's a struggle I have with that sometimes. For the most part, I'm kind of good. I can accept it. But then I watch everybody having a lasagna or loading up on calzones, and I'm just like,
I know, right? Oh, I do. I have those foods where I just cry over them sometimes, and that's okay. That is okay to do. But you're 100% correct. A lot of the physical symptoms that we experience as humans are the byproduct, like the end result of all of the quote unquote slaps from the universe, or energetic messages, or those feelings of, hey, this just isn't right, or all the questions that we have as just being human, when we question our world. And all of that stuff builds up in what's called our information field, which is literally the baseline universe to the energy fed, governed by frequency, which creates the illusion of our matter, that creates our density as humans. And so in that information field, it's receiving things all the time. And the neatest thing about it is it has this intelligence about it, that it knows, as a human being, as a physical form, having a brain and being human, it knows not to bombard us with too many things at one time until we stop listening. It's just like when we stop listening to the universe, when we stop listening to our inner knowings, our inner self, and not necessarily blindly following every single one, but at least acknowledging that that's there. That's when you start getting hit with the hard, heavy symptoms, whether it be lethargy or bowel issues. Bowel issues are huge. Heart conditions are another. And then, of course, the big C words and autoimmune things are all symptoms, are all the byproduct of the result of turning off our human amazingness.
Because at the end of the day, everything is connected. All of it. If your emotional health is crap and you're not processing it, or in some other way, you have needs that aren't being met. And I harp on this to the point where people who are regularly follow my stuff or read my stuff are probably sick of hearing it.
That's okay.
We talk about basic needs, and you start at the bottom, and you've got your nutrition, for hydration, for shelter, all those basics. And of course you need those. But what doesn't get talked about and are on that same level are those needs to feel seen, feel heard, to have connection, and to belong.
And to be safe. To have a safety.
All about that. Exactly. When you have those things, when you have those connections, that's your foundation. Your foundation is solid. You feel safe.
Exactly. And that's what deregulates our nervous system. And that it's a wonderful point, because it brings me into like what's called trauma response, which I'm sure everybody and their mother's dog has heard the word trauma and has their own internal representation of what that might be and how it does not affect them or how it has affected them. But trauma in its truest sense is truly individualized. It's the nervous system response for an event experienced at a heightened state of emotion. And so when you don't feel safe, that creates a trauma response in the brain. That creates a neurological connection that's heightened. When your security or your stability is shaken, that creates a trauma response. And what that does is, our bodies are so amazing that we have all of these millions and millions and millions of cells that make up our form. That response gets housed in our cells. And some cells are these wonderful powerhouses of this, like healthy love and light, and they can take it in and absorb a lot of it. And then you regulate back down to where you're no longer stressed and you go on about your day. Other cells, they hold onto it and they manifest it, they mastize it. And that's where you become chronically, if you experience chronic things, back pain, it just as a fun tip, back pain in general is all caused by an emotional response being held in the body. Now, this is barring sufficient injury within a recent time, but back pain in general and in most all people is originated by an emotional response held in the body, because we shoulder the world. We put that backpack on
to tie it in. It can be a combination as well. You can have an incident where there's an injury and it doesn't heal in the way that you would hope because you're holding these other pieces.
Yeah.
Like for me, an incident at a place I was working. Somebody did a drop and popped a couple of my that and my hip and all kinds of things. And I struggled for a long time, and it was intermittent. There would be days where I could go out and I could run. There were days where I could go out and play baseball or basketball. And then there were other days where I could barely walk and I needed something to walk with.
Yeah.
And in the process, as I was healing my stuff, when I was addressing my health issues and doing my own elimination, one of the side effects has been, and it didn't dawn on me for a while, all of a sudden, I went through winter and my back didn't lock up.
Exactly. Right. I know. Right. I had this terrible shoulder pain. I have literally had it for decades in some form or fashion. And if you ask the older people in my family, it's like, oh, that's just part of it. That's just who we are. That's built into our genes. I'm like, I don't accept that. And I was the same. I didn't make the connection right away as I started healing my inner emotional stuff, right? And releasing these limiting decisions that were but now I don't even know if I can remember what they are, which is so cool.
Nice.
Like when I started healing that, like I literally would feel like energy just flying out of my shoulders at times through these big healing events. And I'm like, wow. And at one point I was like, I swear, I think I can fly. I think I grew wings because I have never woke up without pain in my shoulder region for the last 20 years. So it's truly amazing. Yeah. It's amazing what people, or what we want to compartmentalize. Like our physical health is one thing. Our emotions, if we even are aware that we have them or want to say out loud that we acknowledge that we have them, are another thing. And spirituality has all of this stuff that surrounds it. And you have to be this massive sainty, halo-y person on a post. I don't know, just kind of.
Really? Oh, hold on, I got to take my
I know, right? I know. And and it's so heavy, right? It gets so heavy.
Yeah.
And that was another thing too, when I began releasing the control of fitting into a box, of fitting into a definition that really didn't align with me. It was literally like I got to take off this entire armor head thing and I could truly shine. I could be me. Like my hair even got lighter, like without a stylist. It's crazy.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see, I have the same thing going on.
I can see it. I mean, you're so shiny. You're so shiny. And if we tie this all back in to my basil, right, which I do have a post on my Instagram, which we can drop somewhere at some point, but it's, if I could remember it, it's meg.holistic.coach on Instagram. And I do have a post of me holding these huge bunches of basil. I've been growing these basil plants since they were this big. And for about, I think since like end of April, 1st of May. And they literally like became these just bushes. So like I have had massive amounts of basil. Love basil. I like to cook with it. I like to we eat it literally straight off the plant. It's a great analgesic. So if you have bites, if you have tooth pain and you're not a fan of cloves and you're into all of the like woo-woo remedies, go chew on a few leaves of fresh basil. It's absolutely amazing. What happened is my plant are getting ready for their winter. It's coming into autumn and they're getting ready. So they do what this thing called bolting is. And when they bolt, it's basically like that's their seed production and they're, getting ready to regenerate. So I went and cut all my plants and I cried a little bit, but I gave thanks to the earth. And so I had all these awesome, amazing plants. And my cousin just happens to be a self-taught homestead person. Like, I don't even know what you call her because she just has such a massive amount of wealth of knowledge from, with plants and farming and all of that. So I called her and I was like, what is the best way that I can preserve all of this without having to cook everything right now and make massive amounts of pesto because I've already done that. And because I love pesto and fresh basil pesto is absolutely amazing. But she was like, right, yeah, I know, right? I know. I can literally eat it by the spoon. I literally can. And it's so good for you. Like herbs in general have they have immense antioxidant giving properties and antibacterial giving properties. This is my word personally. I would even go so far as to say antiviral because they are such big immune boosters. That is literally coming from me, not anyone else, just to be clear. But that's how I treat them, right? I treat them with that kind of respect that they give all of this nutrients. And so she was like, take it, bunch it, and tie it up and hang it. And I was like, oh my God, that is so awesome. That's amazing. Because what happens is when you cut the plant or when you cut off a piece of herb, whenever you want to like dry it, you cut it at the stem. And when you turn it upside down, all of those oils and everything, they run back down into the leaves. And so you get this like most amazing smell throughout your whole house. But yeah, so that is what I'm doing with this set of basil is drying it so I can house it for winter. What will happen actually with fresh basil is I'll dry it and then I'll just roughly chop it and I'll put it in a container and put it in the freezer. That way you can just pick it out. And so that's something that you can do. But basil is one of the most amazing things in the whole wide world. It's great for your teeth. It is one of the most amazing things for your skin. If you haven't noticed today, now you will. Every Italian person has amazing skin. You want to know why? Basil. Basil's amazing for your skin. It's wonderful for all of the analgesic stuff. You can literally chew it, put it on bites, and it takes away the redness of whatever said bite. Oh gosh, just so many things. But yes,
that's good to know as somebody that goes into the woods a lot, and I'm realizing that it doesn't matter what you put on yourself to repel the mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. They've decided that they just...
Oh, yeah. They will...
What's supposed to be a repellent is apparently an aphrodisiac to them.
Yes, especially for the rogue of heart insect, because it's like, and it's so funny that you say that just in the simple fact, like, how we always say the energy that you put out is the energy that you attract. Mm-hmm. That isn't just for humans. It's for every living species on the earth. So there might be something there that we could look at, because mosquitoes love me. So we could look at ourselves and see why.
Yeah. There's definitely something there. And it was funny. I was talking to somebody about poison ivy the other day. Mm. And I go in the woods all the time. And I look back, even going back to childhood, I don't even process looking for poison ivy. It rarely, for poison ivy to affect me, I have to be like in a bush and literally trying to cut the stuff out and having it all over me for me to have a reaction. Mm-hmm. If I come across like a random leaf or couple here and there, I don't react to it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Other people here that are the opposite of that. They can literally see the plant and break out in hives. And I'm like, I don't even know what the plant looks like. So I'm glad that you do. So I don't try to pull it out.
Yeah. And it's hard in the summer when everything's lush and green. It's hard to tell. It's easier once you start to get into the fall. You start seeing like the red blotches from it, and it's a lot easier to pick up. But once you go into a lot of these parts, especially up around here in New England this year, it's been a very wet, very summer. Everything's lush. Everything's green.
I was just up in.
You're also not going to see any poison ivy.
Right. I was just recently up in your neck of the woods for the very first time. I was up. We were up in Pennsylvania in like middle Pennsylvania around.
It's beautiful up there.
Oh my God. I could not get over just the sheer beauty of it. Like I'm from the South. I was raised in the South, and then I've lived on islands pretty much all over the ocean. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how have I never like taken the time to really like look at the East Coast, because it's so beautiful. Like everything's so manicured. There's Christmas trees that grow in people's yards. Like, why didn't nobody tell me that Christmas trees just grew in people's yards? I still can't get over it. But yeah, it is. It's so beautiful. And we were out like camping in nature in the park. Like because down here, like especially like with all the heat and everything, summers or nights, or actually any season, they're not the same as I was when I was a kid. And it was literally almost kind of like going back in time to when I was a kid, because there were lightning bugs, there were birds of all kinds. I got to see an eagle. I just got to see all of these amazing, and a chipmunk. Chipmunks are my favorite. If you like chipmunks, drop some chipmunks in the comments of the live on Facebook. I love chipmunks, and so like they're so cool looking, and we don't have them here. We have squirrels, but we don't actually have chipmunks. So yeah. I may have been the crazy person chasing lightning bugs and chipmunks around at the lake in Prince Gallitzin State Park in Pennsylvania for a week.
What you do have that, I know up my way we don't, is you have cicadas.
Yes, and they are everywhere. Okay, here is, if for anybody who doesn't know, they shed their skin and they make a horrible noise. But that is a cicada skin. We call them locusts. Mm-hmm. And when we were a kid, we used to hang them on our shirt like that and freak people out. Yeah, but they are.
A couple of years ago, when I was traveling, I was in Texas, just north of Dallas, and I went and took a walk. There was a nice little trail near my friend's house at the time, and I heard this noise, and I'm like, "What is this?
Right.
Am I gonna die?"
If you've never heard it. It sounds like it's like Jeepers Creepers coming to get you.
And I'm the person, like a few weeks before that, I saw my first rattlesnake, and my first thought was, hey, let's take a picture. So I tend to lean toward that end. So I took a video of it, and I brought it back to, I'm like, what is this? And I played it. And, she called them locusts too. And just like, oh yeah, we don't get that. Like we get crickets and we'll get other things, but up here, we don't get those.
See, man, and it's so like they call them, they are cicadas, right? And their actual rhythm brings on, it shifts the vibration, like the energy vibration of the area so much that it was once called like the coming of season. And if you go even further back, like cicadas were a warning. They are actually very good for the ecosystem at times. They're like a cleansing, and they are very good to eat if you roast them. I don't recommend, like, if you can stand the noise and you can stand catching them, which I'm not real good at, like, because I don't know, they're little alien bugs to me, but they are actually really good to roast and eat. They're full of protein. But yeah, like
It's like chicken by any chance?
Oh, man.
I had to go
think
there.
of it. Come to think, no. They are really like crackly, that they're good. And so, but ants are my favorite. Roasted ant with chili powder. If you've never had them, watch a YouTube video, and please don't roast fire ants.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
I know, right? Roasted ants are really good. But what I began to realize, like, after, because wherever you grow up, like that's your normal, like that's your circumference. And so as you start to experience and explore and you don't have to travel great distances to do so. I mean, you can help. I don't know how many people would get my internet joke, but you can Google it. But you can open a book but anyway, when I started to expand everything, I still, every single new place that I go to, I get this like super huge like mind bomb, because I'm like, oh my God, like I had only seen these things on TV, or I'd only ever heard about such and such, or and so it's like super neat to see all the different cultures and geographic nuances, like in live and in person. Like, yeah. I thought that was so cool.
It is. Like, up here, we don't really do much with the bugs. I think the only thing I've had chocolate covered grasshopper at some point.
You probably have. I think at some point everybody has, or like
Probably.
one of those scorpion suckers. Like, see, we're really close, or we're not, I'm not super close to the border anymore, but like we used to get, whenever I lived way down south, they have full marcados with like all of this stuff cooking and, and like roasting, kind of like a street fair, like a street, whatever they call those places where you can get food and you're walking in like an open air market. So they have all this cool stuff. And like, we used to think it was so cool as kids. They're like, these square suckers, like, different fruit flavors. And they had a scorpion in the middle of them.
Oh, wow.
A real life scorpion. Yeah. And of course, it was dead then, but it was an actual scorpion. And so we just thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And yeah, so it's neat to see everything. So I don't know, like now I want to ask you a whole bunch of questions of like, what's like, let's play the difference game of what all we like and what all we don't have where we're at.
Go for it.
Well, like, okay, so how are you with spice? Like, I know that you said that you had some intestinal issues, but in general, how are you with spice?
Generally doesn't affect me. I can go down hot peppers, give me a hot chili. Honestly, the hotter the better. Garlic, I can, left my own devices, I'll put garlic and or ginger on pretty much everything.
I do too. Wonderful for your gut, by the way. Beautiful prebiotics for the gut microbiome. They love it. There's like, my whole life I've heard you can never have too much garlic. Truly, honest to God, true. and I like this might sound like strange coming out, but I really don't understand people who cannot eat garlic. Like there's a big learning curve there with me, with people who cannot eat garlic.
I think that it's just mindset.
It's gotta be, right?
Fear of having bad breath when they go on a date.
Yeah, or bad sweat. But garlic is so good for your body. It really is. It's another one of those like heavy hitters with gut health and skin health, immunity, brain health. Like, oh my gosh, I'm such a geek when it comes to all this stuff, right? I love diving in so deep and like making all the connections. Recently been doing a lot of energy stuff, but also like the connection between the gut, heart, and brain, as well as the lungs. So like those 4 connections, like, because everybody knows like, oh, your gut's your second brain. Yes. Your heart is the first, then your brain, then your gut, then your lungs, Yeah. And I have this beautiful, poem. As part of the group that I'm with, the Healy world, and just all of its amazing people and everything. But we have this amazing like poem. I'll send it to you. That way, if you want to, you can share it in the comments or whatever. But it's how our head and our heart, how we get all mixed up and just like feud ourselves, and I think everybody's experienced that, where, oh, do I trust my heart? Oh, do I go with my head? Is it logical? Is it rational? Is it in love? All of these things. And so that's when we start to have that. And once we become aware that that's actually what's happening, we tend to drop down into our gut, and our gut's like, it just houses us, it holds us. And, it really does feed and fuel our chi and everything else. And it'll house us for as long as we need. And then it will ask us this question of, well, what is taking you so long to connect? Or go knock on the door of your lungs, go see what's there. And so like our head and our heart will feud, and they'll also work themselves out as soon as we take our breath back. As soon as that's all we have to have is our breath, and everything else literally will come together. So it's super neat just to see it all written out and how all that comes. And
it's amazing. You kind of were talking about how connection with the head, with the mind. So many of us were taught to believe this is where we have to make our decisions. And that's not really it at all. all. It's our library. It's where we take in the information.
It's our internal representation.
Also is our defense system.
Yeah, it's our filter, which is exactly what you just said. It becomes our defense system for the world because like humans, so like everything around you, like your unconscious mind, okay, it can take in everything. And it does. And so like, if you can imagine at every second of the day, you're getting 11 billion bits of information thrown at you. So if we turn those into something tangible, 11 billion toothpicks thrown at you every second of every day. Your mind, your brain can only grab 134 every single second. 134 out of 11 billion, right?
Yeah.
So in order to do what we do, like keep us alive and run all of our bodily functions and all of the other stuff, and for us not to just lose it every single day, it has to generalize, delete, and distort. And that's where we get our, representation system. And so our mind is a beautiful, amazing concept, and our brain is really neat, but it is only just one part of the whole puzzle.
It's not the whole thing.
Right.
It's not like the whole center where everything comes from. And when we start using it that way, that's, when we get in trouble. That's when we start suppressing things. That's when we start making survival decisions and decisions from lack, from fear, from trying to look around. You're talking about pull in those 134 bits out of 11 billion. And most of the time, the mind is scouting, looking for where's the angry bear? Where's the bear?
Where's the bear? That's exactly what it's doing. It's scanning the entire field of what it can and bringing it together as best it can. And it does what one of the top primary directives of the unconscious mind is to secure the body, is to make sure that it stays alive and it stays safe. It's survival. And so whenever we chunk all of this stuff onto our head, when we say, oh, I just can't get my head around this, or, oh, I'm overthinking this, or, oh, I just cannot make a decision. That's when, we're overloading our systems and not even knowing it because we've forgot to check in with our heart, with our gut, with our breath, and our body. Like our body is so amazing that when you just make us this floating cloud of a mind, you're really cutting off 90% of the whole package that is the dream life, way out there somewhere that you can see. And it's really always been attached to you. It's sitting right there for you.
And one of the things that I've learned, especially kind of over the course of almost the last year or so, I was introduced to human design. And I still don't understand a lot of it. Like, there's different points where they start talking about gates and channels and all that stuff. And in those conversations, I'm still going to stare at you glass-eyed. But a lot of the basic information, strategy and authority, my strategy is to wait to respond instead of trying to initiate, having things to bounce back on. And my authority, decision-making is supposed to be, for me, it's my sacral or in my gut. I have to learn to check in with my gut that I've been for years kicking the crap out of with all kinds of food that it can't eat. And no wonder it won't talk to me. And for me, I have to take everything and simplify the decision, turn it into a yes or a no. And I have to go in and check in. Now, sometimes it doesn't give me an answer and I have to wait and come back.
Oh, yeah. The gut is wonderful for holding space. It's literally our like place of allowance. So even when we go there and we get the silent, which is something that most, at least in my experience, my mind does not like. My mind is like,
I need to know. I need to know now.
I know. It's like, I need to know now. And you've got to tell me. And if you look at it, like the gut is really like our coach, not our therapist, not our mom, our coach. So it allows us to sit and it holds space and allows the check-in time, the response time. And I will give credit to the gut for this, but what it allows is that it waits for that aha of the mind, where the mind's like, aha, I got the connection. Okay, let's go. Thanks, gut, because, it's going to get credit either way. And so it doesn't, hi, sweet girl. So it doesn't have to be, in control. it knows who it is. And that's something that it took me a long time to even like relinquish that control to what was, to its true form, if you will, and be able to sit with the silence, because it used to drive me batty.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have to have everything planned out. I have to know everything that can go wrong, and I have to know how I can adjust or I can adapt. I mean, I had a career of many years, and that was literally my job. I had to kind of plan out and figure out what resources I needed to send to an emergency seat. That was what I did. So it worked perfectly for that piece, but when I was off the clock, my brain would still work that way, and it never really worked out because you can never see.
Well, that is true. Like you can, in a rational perspective, like in a 3D perspective, you can never equilibrate infinity. And so there's always could be that one. There could always be that one extra thing, and that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, a lot of shutdown could come from, and that kind of thing. But all in all, the strategy and the process and the training that you have is beautiful to me, because it allows you now, and this could just be something like a little toothpick, but it can allow you now to check in with the different systems in your body, like your gut, your heart, your breath, and if saying it from a mind's perspective, it would be, let's implement my system. However, what will happen is the flourishing and the growth of said system to that knowing, to that resounding, aligned knowing, which comes from the wholeness of the whole system.
Right. All the mindset of how you address the unknown, instead of being afraid of it and seeing it as doom, remembering that, to whatever degree, and everybody can relate, everybody's gone through awful stuff. And it's not about competition or comparison, but we've all gone through some shit.
Yeah.
We've gotten through the other side of it. And
so we
remembering the odds are really, really good that whatever thing that comes down the pipe you can't see, you're going to get out the other side of, because you always have.
Yeah. Most definitely. And that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of, the individual's definition of trauma. If the body's definition is nothing more than a neurological connection at a heightened emotional state. So we've all been, and we have those states and those times that we can recall like that, and it's because of that deep connection. And so in using that, and instead of sitting inside of it, if we use that knowledge of, hey, I not only survive X, Y, and Z, I can now tell the story of it. I'm thriving out of it. I'm helping others with it. If we can sit with that knowledge, then anything that comes at you, is manageable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Megan, where can we find you?
Oh, well, you can find me now on Facebook. Yeah. And you can also find me on Instagram, which I'm working on my site as we speak. So that will be up and running and in my bio links on Instagram. So my Instagram has all of my links in my bio, which is at meg.holistic.coach on Instagram. It's the best place.
And I'll
to
make
find
sure that that's in the show notes.
Perfect.
And
I have enjoyed this so much. We must do it again.
Absolutely. That sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Megan's amazing, isn't she? Thank you for hanging out with us. And again, if there was anything in that conversation that inspired you in one way or another, we would love to know about it. Please shoot us a message. You can do it on Instagram. I am at richlevesque10. It'll be spelled in the show notes. And Megan is at meg.holistic.coach. Megan had mentioned a poem that she was inspired by, and I would like to share it with you before we leave. It's from a poet named John Roedel, Roedel. and his work is at johnroedel.com. And this particular poem is called The Anatomy of Peace. It will be linked in the show notes as well. My brain and heart divorced a decade ago over who was to blame about how big of a mess I have become. Eventually, they couldn't be in the same room with each other. Now my head and heart share custody of me. I stay with my brain during the week, and my heart gets me on weekends. They never speak to one another. Instead, they give me the same note to pass to each other every week. And their notes they send to one another always say the same thing. This is all your fault. On Sundays, my heart complains about how my head has let me down in the past. And on Wednesdays, my head lists all of the times my heart has screwed things up for me in the future. They blame each other for the state of my life. There's been a lot of yelling and crying. So, lately, I've been spending a lot of time with my gut, who serves as my unofficial therapist. Most nights, I sneak out of the window in my ribcage and slide down my spine and collapse on my gut's plush leather chair that's always open for me. And I just sit until the sun comes up. Last evening, my gut asked me if I was having a hard time being caught between my heart and my head. I nodded. I said I didn't know if I could live with either of them anymore. My heart is always sad about something that happened yesterday, while my head is always worried about something that may happen tomorrow, I lamented. My gut squeezed my hand. I just can't live with my mistakes of the past or my anxiety about the future, I sighed. My gut smiled and said, in that case, you should go stay with your lungs for a while. I was confused. The look on my face gave it away. If you are exhausted about your heart's obsession with the fixed past and your mind's focus on the uncertain future, your lungs are the perfect place for you. There is no yesterday in your lungs. There is no tomorrow there either. There is only now. There is only inhale. There is only exhale. There is only this moment. There is only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your heart and head work their relationship out. This morning, while my brain was busy reading tea leaves, and while my heart was staring at old photographs, I packed a little bag and walked to the door of my lungs. Before I could even knock, she opened the door with a smile, and as a gust of air embraced me, she said, "What took you so long?" And with that, I thank you for listening. I invite you to subscribe and support this podcast in any way you feel so inspired. Take care, be safe, and be well. All content is the property of the respective creators. All opinions are solely those of the participants and do not reflect those of any of the hosting platforms. Misfits, Wanderers, and the Rest of Us is produced through Beacon Road Ministry. Copyright 2021, all rights reserved.